I remember feeling completely alone in my experience dealing with a narcissistic parent until I started sharing my experience online. And that was the first time that I had ever really started to discover a community of people who truly understood what that kind of control and manipulation looks and feels like. And I think growing up in that kind of environment, it's exactly how you're meant to feel. You're meant to feel isolated, like no one else can relate to you. Like this is a very individual experience. And, it's hard enough to start talking about it openly and honestly. It's hard to realize that there was anything wrong in the first place because you were really encouraged to believe that all of the toxicity that you were enduring was completely normal. And I remember feeling like the way my family functioned, that's probably the way that every family functions, more or less. Everyone gets loud and everyone yells and stomps their feet. And it wasn't until I was in my early 20s that I started to gain some perspective of other healthier relationships where some light bulbs started to go off in my head and I started to realize, okay, maybe these things that really don't feel too good aren't completely normal. Maybe not everyone functions this way. And that was really eye-opening to me because then that made me feel like I don't have to endure this. I don't deserve this kind of behavior, and this isn't universal. And yet, growing up in a narcissistic family, I think so often so many of us are encouraged, kind of pressured to not talk about what goes on within the family with anyone else. I think narcissistic parents tend to be highly critical of other people, their perspectives, their opinions. And so you might even start to carry a sense of superiority or just feel like, oh, well, my family is different. We do things a little bit differently. I don't really care about what other people say. I don't agree. I don't think it's right. Because that's what you've been pressured to believe. Those are the opinions that you have been pressured to take on by your narcissistic parent because that's how they feel. And so it's hard enough in the beginning to even know that whatever it is that's going on is unhealthy or toxic, especially if you've never been exposed to any other real healthy relationship dynamics before. And so in my experience, if you had asked me when I was in my teens, my early mid-teens, what my relationship with my parents was like, I would say that it was primarily positive, that I love my parents. They're great parents, and I'm super happy that, my general existence was positive. My family life was positive because I had no idea that there were other experiences and relationships that were different, that were better and calmer and more understanding, full of empathy, I guess, and support, even of individual things. If I wanted to be independent, there was a world that existed where I could go to my parent and talk about that, and they would encourage me and be happy for me. There was a world where I could go to a parent or an adult and I could talk about a really touchy subject that maybe was a bit controversial, and there would be no yelling. There would be no guilt or shame or punishment. And yet, I think so many of us, that's all we know for so long that we don't even think to question things. And if we do, maybe a rare occurrence, we do feel bold enough to question something because it really just doesn't feel right. Dealing with a narcissistic parent can be so incredibly intimidating. The narcissistic rage, they're not only physically bigger than you are, but they're louder. They're an authority figure. They have more control. They know your weaknesses and your insecurities, your vulnerabilities, and they will not hesitate to prey on those things to get you to do what they want you to do or to feel the way that they think that you should feel. And what's especially convoluted, I want to say, about a narcissist in terms of a parent-child relationship, when you're dealing with a narcissistic parent, is children are by nature vulnerable, naive, innocent, and I think we crave sort of instinctually attention and affection and care from our parent, from our primary caretaker. We want them to be happy. We want them to think highly of us. And when you're young, I think it's so easy for a narcissist to manipulate those qualities that make childhood and children in general so special for their own personal gain, where, there were a lot of interests that I took on that for the longest time I thought were mine. I genuinely thought that I liked this kind of music and I liked doing this activity and that I had this opinion. And it's not until now, as an adult, years out of that environment, where I'm now in a place where I'm encouraged to think for myself. And I don't feel pressured to take on the opinions or the thoughts or emotions of another person, that I started to realize it's been years and I've had no desire to listen to that music or to do that activity, or I don't feel this way anymore. And it's so eye-opening how they can prey on these things and really make them seem like your own. And I remember really believing, like, this is who I am. This is who I am. This is the kind of person that I am, or how I feel. And I think it's rooted in that initial connection that you feel with a parent, where if they feel a certain way about something and you express something different, they'll make you feel bad. A narcissistic parent will make you feel bad, guilt, or shame for your differing opinion. And so you'll start to realize, okay, that doesn't feel very good. And so maybe the next time that same topic comes up, you sort of flip the script and you say, oh yeah, I feel that way too. And now all of a sudden you're best buds, right? And now you are their closest person. They have someone that they can trust, that they can confide in. And they do this over and over and over again. And I think that's why so many of us were viewed and also viewed ourselves as an extension of our parent instead of our own person. Because the more we took on what they wanted, the better it felt, the more attention we received. We were in good standing. And I think they made us feel like a better person when we would do those things. And it's so consistent and it's so subtle. Gosh, and coupled with the fact that on the surface, to outsiders, people outside of your immediate family, narcissists can be incredibly charming and charismatic. My parent volunteered so much time at my school, at sporting events. They were always available. They were very talkative. They remembered things about people. The kids loved them. And so you might be dealing with these things at home, and then teachers, classmates, other parents, they're all telling you how great your parent is and how lucky you are to have a parent like them, which just kind of adds to the confusion. But at the end of the day, it reinforces, okay, yeah, like I'm lucky, to be in this situation and my parent is great. Despite all of the negativity that you might actually be feeling on the inside, you just continue to kind of suppress these things and believe what everyone is telling you, including your narcissistic parent. I think the subtlety sometimes of the manipulation, in addition to how consistent it is and how persistent a parent can be, it makes you feel like you don't even stand a chance. And then when you start to realize your trauma and you start to talk openly about this and bring this to other people, it's hard for anyone who hasn't experienced it or witnessed it to actually understand. Because so much of what so many of us experience with a narcissistic parent is so intense and extreme and volatile and horrible that it's hard to even imagine that a parent would do those things or say those things to a kid. There's a lot. It's hard to put narcissism into perspective for people who don't know what it looks like or what it feels like. But I guess if I had to describe it simply and sort of summarize it, imagine being vulnerable and having this person trick you into believing that they're there for you, that they are your best friend, that you are like the only two people in the world that share this common understanding of the way the world is and how life works, and that no matter what, you're always going to be there for each other. But then they start to use things as leverage against you to make you feel bad about ever making a decision or taking on an opinion that differs from what they want, what they expect of you. And so they sort of encourage this complacency that becomes very seamlessly integrated into your daily life. And before you know it, that bond that you once thought was so authentic and real and that would always be there becomes this controlling, manipulative experience where now you are living in service to this other person and they make you feel bad for doing just about anything. And not only that, but they know so much about you that they can use as leverage, they can twist to make you feel like a really bad person. They can form other people's opinions about you to try to guilt or shame you back into that relationship. It's like having the rug completely pulled out from under you because there's a lot of apparent charm or connection or friendship in the beginning. And they're really skilled at reinforcing that periodically so that you feel tied to them. You feel like you owe them something. And then as soon as you sort of cross that line, whatever line is that they draw and they feel like you've crossed it, they will pull the rug out from under you. And then you start to realize that all of those experiences that you once believed to be positive and real were nothing of the sort. It's probably the biggest and most intense betrayal that you can imagine experiencing. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. You know, I am not a professional. I don't claim to be one, but a therapist once told me that I am an expert in my own experience. And I want to speak about these topics candidly so that anyone who has experienced or is currently experiencing something like it knows a little bit more about what to expect, how to respond, and that you're not alone.